So when we speak Japanese, we actually don't really use the word you most of the time. But we have lots of words that can mean you, and some people use them sometimes. For example, we have anata, which is something you learn from textbooks. But you have to be careful because using you can come across as a bit abrupt and aggressive. So unless you really know what you're doing, it's better not to use it. I've heard people use it in real life, although it was pretty rare. But when they do, I feel like it's more acceptable if they are older than the other person.
みさこがさ、熱出し
あ、熱出したの？で、あなたがお買い物に来てくれたの？偉いね。
Now, you might have heard that wives use anata with their husbands, but this way of using anata is kind of archaic, so I don't think people today use it like that. In practice, it's better not to use anata when you speak Japanese. And if you want to know how, I will teach you the kind of Japanese the real-life Japanese people today actually speak. Because textbooks and apps are unnatural and they don't really teach you how we actually speak Japanese. So click the link in the description and subscribe to my email group. The next one is kimi, which some people use with people who are equal or lower in status. I actually use it very often when I was little, but for some reason I stopped it entirely.
私も君のそばにいるの辛いよ
I can only think of one person who I know personally who uses kimi in real life regularly. But kimi is very common in Japanese music. The next one is omae, which is very rude and insulting if you use it with somebody you don't really know. But people you are close with, it's not always rude. So some people use it with their friends, especially men.
お疲れ様でした。でももうちょっと今日ぐらいはもうお前と降りたくないな。
下着って確か土木関係の用語じゃなかったっけ
お前は何でも知ってるな。
By the way, I'm just one Japanese person, so it's possible that I don't know that some people use some of these yous in some places because I don't know everything. I only know what I know. And the next one is anta, which again can be very rude if you use it with somebody you don't really know well. And again, that's not necessarily the case with somebody you are close with. In fact, I remember that my mom used anta with me several times.
あんたには生きてもらう。
The next one is jibun, which actually means myself. But some people, especially in Kansai, use it for other people, which I find interesting.
甘えるタイプやろ自分。そうした。
She said jibun, but she doesn't mean herself. She actually meant the other girl. And there's another one that is similar, which is boku, which is a first-person pronoun for men. But some people use it to address little boys.
僕はお刺身好きでしょ。ね。ああいうふうにしなかったらね。お魚食べられないでよ。
Now, some people called me boku when I was little, but I actually hated it. I felt it was kind of condescending. It's probably because only adults can use it to address little boys. The next one is temee, which is quite insulting even with your friends. You don't hear temee very often in real life, but it's quite common in fiction.
あんたが殺した俺らの母ちゃんだよ。
道理で林ライス食べて泣くわけだ。
てめえもういっぺん言ってみろよお前！
The next one is otaku, which originally means your house, but some people use it as a second-person pronoun. And this is where the expression otaku, as in nerd, comes from, because it seems like otaku in the past used otaku with each other. I don't think I've heard otaku as a second-person pronoun in real life, and it's probably because people use it more often in the past. But I've read that people in Kansai use it more often than people in Kanto. It was kind of hard to find a clip where they used otaku, but I found this clip from the 80s.
あのね、一度聞こうと思ってたんだけど、オタクひょっとしてクルージング？
ええ、片思いのクルージングですわ。
Now the pronouns I've talked about so far can be quite rude if you use them in real life. But the next one won't be rude, and that is oniisan, big brother, which you can use to address male strangers.
お兄さんも変態ですか？
変態ですね。
そうですよね。変態そんな格好してるの？そうだね。
And if they are women, you can use お姉さん。
お姉さんの、今の楽しみって何ですか？
アルバイトをちょっと頑張ってます。
If you are a beginner, you might find it easier to use お兄さん or お姉さん if you want to say you. Because in real life, most of us don't use any of the yous at all. So the most common you in Japanese is nothing at all. Like this.
なんか理想の結婚家族像とかなんかありますか？
そうだね。
So not using you is pretty normal for us. And the second most common you is simply using somebody's name.
五条くんの衣装一番いいよ。
And there's a very polite one that you can use if you work for example, a restaurant. You can say お客様 to address your customers.
お客様、どうかなさいましたか？
So if you go to a restaurant in Japan, waiters will probably call you お客様. Just like this, using somebody's role as a second person pronoun is pretty common. For example, you can call your senpai or upperclassman 先輩。
次は先輩が話してくれる番です。昨日のあれは何だったんですか？
And you can call your teacher 先生。
小僧、へりくつを言うな。
小僧って、いや確かに先生の年齢からしたら俺は小僧。
This is probably easy to understand because you can do the same thing in English. For example, you call a medical doctor, doctor. You can call your president, Mr. President. Pretty easy. Now let's talk about how you can address a group of people. You can use 皆さん everybody.
はい。あとそれから今日は皆さんに転校生を紹介します。そっちが後回り。
You can also use みんな which also means everybody. The difference is with minna, you can use it with people who are equal or lower in status. In other words, you can use it with people you don't really have to use keigo with. And with keigo, check out my other video. Here's an example of minna.
あんまり言い過ぎそれはもうわからんけどそれ。超怖くなってきた今。言い過ぎやろ。期待しすぎてみんなちょっと。
Now, the second person pronouns I've mentioned so far are something you can hear in real life. But let me talk about ones you don't really hear in real life, but you might hear in fiction. For example, you have kisama, which is quite insulting even with people you are close with. Some people might use it kind of as a joke in real life, but I don't think you'd hear this very often in real life. But kisama is very popular in fiction, especially in anime. But I found an interesting example, so I will show it to you.
貴様の罪状は殺人および国家反逆罪だ。
And the next one is unu, which is an archaic you and it's somewhat insulting.
わしの名はパワー。バディとやらはウヌか？
You definitely don't hear unu in real life because again it's quite archaic. The next one is kind of the same, which is おまえさま. This one is actually quite polite, but again it's quite archaic.
協力してくれるかって聞いていい？
かっか、残念ながら今のわしはお前様に逆らうことのできん立場でな。
The next one, onushi, is again quite archaic, but it's not uncommon in fiction.
ほんとつらいわ。
いや、すまんすまん。しかしお主らを見てると飽きんわ。
Now she said ra, which makes it plural, so onushira means you guys. In the same way, you can actually pluralize many of the pronouns I've mentioned. You can say 君ら、お前ら、あんたら、自分ら、てめえら、オタクら、お兄さんら、お姉さんら、先輩ら、先生ら、先輩ら、I'm not sure. But you can definitely say 貴様ら、うぬら、that's possible. お前様ら、I'm not sure about that. お主ら、yes. Another common way is using たち. So, あなたたち、君たち、お前たち、あんたたち。
負けてらんないのよ。あんたたちに。
自分たち、僕たち、てめえたち、I don't think so. オタクたち、maybe. お兄さんたち、お姉さんたち definitely. お客様たち、I'm not sure. Again, this is just one Japanese person, so maybe other people have different opinions. 先輩たち I think that's fine. 先生たち fine. 貴様たち I think 貴様ら is more common. お前様たち I'm not sure. お主たちI'm not sure. I think お主ら is more common. It's kind of interesting when you can and when you can't use ら or たち to pluralize pronouns. And the last one is nanji, which again is a cake. And it's kind of literary, as in literature, so I don't think you hear this very often even in fiction, as a spoken expression. But I found this clip.
あまりの強大さゆえ世界に疎まれし我が禁断の力を汝も欲するか。
She's using nanji because she thinks it's cool to use this kind of literary word. But you definitely don't use nanji in real life. So if you want to learn Japanese with me, I will teach you the kind of Japanese that real life Japanese people today actually speak, because textbooks and apps don't really teach you how we actually speak Japanese. So click the link and subscribe to my email group, Japanese with Yuta.